we're the weather capital of the world.
Home to the prognosticator of prognosticators. We're talking about Phil. If you're in town, you can pay him a visit.
People and visitors would come into town and want to be able to see the world-famous groundhogs.
But Phil isn't the only interesting thing. Just take, for instance, the story behind how the town got its name.
They identified as a place by its little pesky flies that they call the gnat.
So many things make this community unique. This is Your Town, Punxsutawney.
And welcome to Punxsutawney. We have a lot to talk about in the next half hour, but we would be remiss while we're here to have a good time and to celebrate this festival. Our hearts and our minds and our prayers are with the people of Dallas and the terror that happened there, and especially you're married to a policeman. We feel for those families tonight, but life goes on. That's what makes America great. That's why we're here tonight, and we're happy to be spending some time among some really, really nice people. And I'll never eat frog legs again. But we are in Punxsutawney in Jefferson County.
This is our stop this week on our Your Town series, and every Friday, as you know, all summer long, we're highlighting the people, history, and organizations, things that make town special in our region.
Now, there's a lot going on around us because, as Jen said, this is Punxsutawney's Summer Groundhog Festival. It actually began Sunday, right, Hunter? It began on Sunday. We're going to tell you a lot more about that and other things, but first, we'll do our usual look at Punxsutawney history.
The Punxsutawney area was an important stopping place along the Shamokin Path, a popular Native American path that came out of the middle of Pennsylvania. It led west as the Native Americans were moving to new settlements across the state into Ohio. Therefore, Punxsutawney gets its name from Native American origin.
But along the way was a stop they identified as a place by its little pesky flies that they called the gnat. It was a ponky, but they had a word ponky for it. And that was interpreted by the Moravian missionaries who were with them into Punxsutawney, the town of the Ponkies.
Fast forward to the early 1800s. Punxsutawney and its surrounding area in Jefferson County was settled largely by people of German ancestry. The area, being mainly wilderness, became known as a lumber town. But soon after, those who lived there found an abundance of coal under the earth's surface. That's what brought in the commercial railroads. Some notable companies came to town as a result of the industries: the Walston Mine, plus the Rochester and Pittsburgh Coal and Iron Company.
Right now, the Punxsutawney Area Historical and Genealogical Society is working to remember the town's industrial heritage with the development and construction of a memorial,
which will eventually house the information about industries in the Punxsutawney area, not just coal, but the railroad, the iron furnace, the spin-offs, the hospital. So much of the infrastructure here in Punxsutawney relates back to the coal industry.
Now here's a neat little tidbit. The folks at the Historical Society here in Punxsutawney say people, I think we've employed some of them, have trouble spelling the town's name.
Yeah, we recall a couple of those mistakes, don't we?
Yes, we've made them.
And they're honest mistakes. In fact, in 1869 and throughout the years, the post office, Marty, has received mail addressed to a myriad of places. And take a look at this. This is a short list of some, and we did not make these up. Through the years, at least 41 different documented spellings of the town's name have ended up in the correct post office.
Now, most of the spellings, and this is heartening, start with a P and end with a Y. Some end with an A, some have even ended with an N. We've had other variations of that. Each of them have sometimes lengthy combinations of letters in between.
Now, the town of Punxsutawney is synonymous with the winter holiday. Groundhog Day got its start here in this town in the late 1800s.
And the show's been a big crowd pleaser ever since. We're here every Groundhog Day. In fact, the largest Groundhog Day celebration was back in 1997. There were 35,000 people on Gobbler's Knob to watch the iconic Phil make his prediction.
February 2nd, Groundhog Day. Many out-of-towners probably know it by the 1993 movie starring Bill Murray and Andie MacDowell. But there's a reason Punxsutawney is the centerpiece for the holiday known around the country. It goes back to the town's heritage, mostly German settlers. Those settlers brought with them the tradition known as Candlemas Day. The Germans had a celebration similar to Groundhog Day, using a hedgehog instead.
Obviously, we don't have hedgehogs, we have groundhogs, and the celebration and the legend kind of adapted, and it's been happening since 1886.
And after that, the town became the weather capital of the world. Punxsutawney Phil is known as the seer of seers, the king of weather prophets. Every February 2nd on Groundhog Day, thousands of people make their way to Gobbler's Knob to watch Phil make his prediction. If he sees his shadow, that means there's 6 more weeks of winter. No shadow, and we're in for an early spring.
Phil is woken by the president. They tap on the stump 3 times with the acacia wood cane. He's woken up. The handlers bend down, they'll pick him up, and they'll lift him up and show him to the crowd. And then they'll gently place him on the top of the stump, and that's where Phil and Bill, well, Bill's the current president, will communicate in groundhogese, and then they'll get the prediction from there.
But something you might not know, the festivities weren't always held at the current location on Gobbler's Knob.
It's actually called the Groundhog Weather Works at Canoe Ridge, and that location was about 2 miles from our current spot. And basically, they found this property, and they started to rent it from an organization. It was a sportsman's club.
That sportsman's club was able to accommodate thousands of spectators, and eventually the Punxsutawney Groundhog Club acquired the property, which now bears the name Gobbler's Knob.
And what about the formal attire the Inner Circle members wear while they're waking up Phil before 7:30 in the morning each February 2nd?
It started in the 1950s, and it came from the president of the Inner Circle at the time, and his name was Sam Light. And he thought that Phil was royalty. He's royalty of the animal kingdom, and then he should be surrounded as people dressed as such. So that's where the history of the top hat and the tuxedo came into play.
Ever since the 1970s, Phil and his wife Phyllis can be visited at their burrow. It's permanently located in the Punxsutawney Public Library.
Now, for those of you who love the movie Groundhog Day, you should know it wasn't actually filmed in Punxsutawney. The location for the movie was in Woodstock, Illinois, which actually needed Punxsutawneyized before production began.
Now, that does not mean that Punxsy wasn't part of that production. In fact, some real Punxsutawney store names can be seen in the movie. Bill Murray and other crew members did study up about the holiday in the town. They visited in Jefferson County before the production started, and inside the Punxsy Historical Society, an exhibit shows some autographed movie memorabilia. As we told you, there's a lot going on in Punxsutawney. It started on Sunday. It goes all week long. It is what's known affectionately around here as the Summer Groundhog Festival. It's happening right here, right smack dab in the middle of town in Barclay Square.
And we have Roger Steele with us, the president of the festival. And Roger, you got to tell us, how did this festival get started?
A local group of citizens started it over 50 years ago. They planned a small 3-day event, and it has grown, and it's continuing to grow.
Now, a lot of people, okay, you know, every town around here has festivals. What makes yours unique besides the fact that you've been doing this, what are you, 103? So you've been doing this forever. So what makes this festival unique?
This is my 30th year as chairperson.
So you started at 70, I got it.
Okay. No, we have a variety of mix of people that come in and have different booths that sell either vendor fees or handcrafts. We have 19 restaurants. We have some fantastic music that we bring in from all over the East Coast.
We got a pretty good drummer. I mean, he's got the beat down.
And it's all sponsored locally. We sell sponsorships and we advertise starting at $100. Some businesses donate $500. I had one this year that said, I'll go the whole bill, and she wrote a check for $37.50.
A true community event. Roger Steele, we want to thank you for having us here for your town, Punxsutawney. And we're going to catch up with you in just a little bit.
I've got a fantastic committee that puts this all together.
Well,
I knew somebody in September.
I knew somebody had to do the work. Okay, Roger, you can go back to your post now. The chair's right over there in the shade. All right, buddy, thank you. Thank you.
So, guys, if you take a ride around town, you will undoubtedly see at least one of the collection of what is called Fantastic Fills.
County takes pride in its icon, Phil, even casting statues of him. The project started a little more than a decade ago. Around town, you can find 32 groundhog statues, each decorated differently.
So anything you can think of, there's some that are covered with stained glass, there's a bagpiper, there's a bellhop, basically you name it, there's one of those as well.
The statues are decorated by local artists, each sponsored and owned by different Punxsutawney organizations and businesses. 2 of the 32 really stick out. One is of Punxsutawney Phyllis, another has Phil wearing a top hat.
And we're just getting started here. We are live in Punxsutawney for your town. Lots more to come from Punxsutawney, including some things that will get you out and about. We'll see you in a bit.
Welcome back. We are in Punxsutawney in Jefferson County for this week's Your Town broadcast. We are live from the Summer Groundhog Festival, where you too can wear a fine-looking hat like the lid I'm wearing tonight. There's a lot to do here, but actually, beyond the festival, if you want to get out and about here in Punxsutawney, there's a very simple way to do that. You can take a walk, you can go for a run, or you can ride your bike on the Mahoning Shadow Trail.
A project by the Punxsutawney Area Rails to Trails Association, the Mahoning Shadow Trail is 15 miles long. In February 1994, the Punxsutawney Chamber of Commerce held a public meeting to explore the idea of a local rail to trail. By 2002, the trail was open and ready for walkers, hikers, bikers, even cross-country skiers in the winter. And now that more than a decade has gone by, the group is looking for some help.
So we are in the midst of a fundraising event where we are trying to raise enough money to resurface the entire trail. Because of weather, because of use, many areas are back down to the original railroad ballast. And we hope to improve the surface of the trail with this fundraising activity.
Wolf says the group has already reached about 2/3 of its $75,000 goal. To help out and to find a trailhead nearest you, just log on to mahoningshadowtrail.org.
There is a lot going on here in Punxsutawney, and there's a special young man we want to introduce you to. He is very much involved, unusual for his age, in the arts.
And he is with Bridget McClure right now. Bridget?
Hey guys, this is Alex Shoemaker. He's 10 years old. He's from Punxsutawney, and you've probably seen him at Thunder in the Valley because he's a drummer. Alex, tell me how you got into percussion.
Well, I started watching Journey when I was 5 and a half, and the drummer that started influencing me to play, Dean Castronova and Rich Redman and Sean Fuller. There's tons of other drummers I can't name.
So you've done some sound checks for some pretty famous bands?
Yeah. I did sound check with Jackal, Florida Georgia Line, Jason Aldean, Wyandotte Judd, and I was on stage with Foreigner and Jefferson Starship.
And Alex did that sound check with Jackal in Sandusky, Ohio for Bike Week. So tell me how that was.
It was awesome. It was amazing.
No, that's okay. So tell me about the band that you're in. I want to hear about this.
Well, the band that I'm in is pretty sweet. We have 5 members, I think, and we have our rhythm guitar guy his name is Brendan, and our lead guitar guy is Dino, and he's a great guitar player. And our singer, her name is Gabriella, and our bass guitarist is Marissa.
Okay. So what do you want to do when you get older?
I want to be a rock star. I really like, the fact that I, play drums. I just want to be a rock star when I grow up.
So you can watch Alex be a rock star in action tomorrow. Where are you going to be at?
I'm going to be at the concert at the Caves in Lincoln Cavern.
And the Lincoln Caverns are in Huntington County. And all right, so Alex, thank you so much. You can find him on Twitter, you can find him on Facebook. We got to go to commercial, but when we come back, we're going to learn all about the Weather Discovery Center.
Jefferson County, the weather capital of the world.
I should have a tone-on-tone shirt and shark-skin slacks. It wouldn't be appropriate to talk about the weather without something called the Weather Discovery Center right here in town.
We're the weather capital of the world with our world famous, Punxsutawney Phil, weather predictor.
As the weather capital of the world, it makes sense to have a place for an interactive experience with every aspect of weather. And that's exactly what visitors to the Weather Discovery Center can expect.
They'll learn about weather folklore, they'll learn about thunderstorms and how thunderstorms are made. They'll learn about tornadoes. They get to become a tornado on our Tornado Twisty slide.
As Hornak mentioned, weather folklore, like is there actually truth behind the saying, red sky at night, sailor's delight? Or when you hear the spring peepers, warmer weather is soon to follow. But there's so much more.
So we can hear what it sounds like.
One of the center's newest additions, a disaster shelter, to learn about what you need in order to be prepared should something like a tornado happen. You can also take a step into the shoes of a TV meteorologist.
This is our green screen, where you would stand in front of the green wall and check out the monitor, and then you see yourself, and you can do the weather forecast, and it takes you through the different screens.
The Weather Center isn't the only draw. Some Punxsutawney natives might remember sending a letter from this historic building.
The building was built in 1914, and it was the original Punxsutawney post office. So yes, there's a lot of history to the building itself. Visitors come in and remember coming to the post office, remember putting their stamps on in the lobby and standing at the stamp windows.
So whether it's for your chance to be on TV or a trip down memory lane, there's something at the Weather Center for everyone.
Well, we don't have a groundhog, folks. Well, maybe we do. Maybe Tony is the groundhog in real life. Tony, we've had great weather here. I hope it continues through the weekend.
Yeah, Marty, Jen, pretty lucky today here in Punxsutawney. Much of the area dry this afternoon, dry tonight. Just a small chance of a passing storm heading into the weekend. Quick look at your weekend here. 30% for tomorrow, which means most areas will stay dry. If you do pick up a shower or storm, not lasting more than 10 to 15 minutes, sun comes right back out. It's with a reinforcing shot of cooler air. Not chilly, just a little bit cooler than what we've been. So 77 then by Sunday, dropping to 56 Sunday night. That's the biggest difference, but it doesn't last long. Heat and humidity are back next week. 80s, valleys in the low 90s, nighttime lows right around 70 degrees. We'll have more from Punxsutawney right after the break.
Welcome back to your town, Punxsutawney. We all have that childhood memory of a special recipe that only Mom could make.
Well, for Nicky Stello and his family and friends, Grandma's Rosie's sweet pepper spread was everyone's favorite, and Bridget McClure was at Stello Foods, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about that local business. Hi, Bridget.
Marty and Jen, that pepper spread recipe started as a Sunday meal, but it quickly turned into Nicky's college project for his entrepreneur class, and it turned into a business plan. Nicky took us to that production facility yesterday, and we were there while they were filling up some jars of some delicious Luigi spaghetti sauce. For almost 30 years, Stello Foods has been making and manufacturing its family recipes.
That ended up being the pan that we cooked our first batches of pepper spread in on the patio.
After so much success, other companies wanted their recipes produced too. And now, majority of Stello Foods' business is packaging and private labeling.
We do our brands, which is Rosie's and Pink's, but also we do thousands of different products for hundreds of different companies now.
The production facility sits on Pine Street in Punxsutawney. Stello says they have about 42 employees, 20 of them working here at the warehouse.
If a recipe calls for onions, we're using fresh onions. If a recipe calls for peppers, we're using fresh peppers. And we do it all in-house.
It takes 1 hour for the jars to come out of the box empty and go back in full.
Just go through, they get filled, capped, through a pasteurization tunnel, which is a heating tunnel. Then they come back through and on the cooling tunnel, which cools them down. Then they go through coating and labeling. And then they go back into the boxes.
Mail order is a big part of the business. They've even shipped as far as the UK and Japan. Barbecue sauce, mustards, salsa, spaghetti sauce, and so much more.
In our brand, if you add up all the flavors of pepper spread, sweet, mild, and hot, that's probably the #1 seller.
There at the end, you saw Nicky Stello with his son Antonio. Antonio is 16 years old, and his dad says the plan will probably be to have him join the family business someday. And by the way, Jen and Marty, I got to try some of that sauce too, and it tasted just as good as it smelled.
The problem with your town is this half hour just flies by, but we'll be on the road again next week. We'll be live from the Rib and Wing Festival. I should be a professional announcer. At the Seven Springs Mountain Resort, highlighting so many different things at the resort and the southern part of the Laurel Highlands. That's broadcast is next Friday at 5:30.
We'd like to thank Roger Steele, Susan Wolf, the folks at the Historical Society, Dee and Jenny, we can't forget them with the frog legs. Everyone who helped make this broadcast so special.
Now, I don't know if these are going back on the for sale rack, but they're a little sweaty. But I mean, you could probably get, I mean, they get Jen Johnson sweat.
I think it's time for us to go find Phil.
We're going to go find food. Thanks so much for being here. Erica will have a look at the rest of the day's news coming straight up.